All right, welcome everybody to the January 22nd, 2018 meeting of Kubernetes SIG service catalog. Morgan's going to share his screen and Aaron's going to execute the agenda. All right, turn it over to Aaron.
Cool, thanks everyone. Thanks, Paul. We're going to do the normal speaker queue process. I've got my fancy technology equipment as usual. For those who don't know, just put a hand up in the chat, not like that, the spell error. And I'll put you on the list, I'll ACK you, and then we'll do the discussion like that. And with that, we'll start with the agenda. Someone say something?
Looks good.
Okay, cool.
Am I presenting? Yep. We're good?
You are.
Excellent, good.
So
excellent. Okay, cool. Sorry I'm late.
We'll start with the agenda. The first element was raised by me and Niall about the PR. It's been merged, so we don't need to talk about that anymore. So let's move on to Paul talking about an APAC-friendly meeting. Go ahead, Paul.
I see that the agenda has been reshuffled. Morgan, I thought you were going to show the cluster ID thing.
I could show the one that we have if you want, or I could just post the video. I was having discussions with Doug, and Doug wanted to do something else until now. Otherwise, I would have sent it out the email already. So.
Okay. All right. No problem. So last time we met, we were talking about a APAC-friendly meeting time. And I sent a message to the list, soliciting opinions about what that might be. I didn't see any responses to that. Did anybody else?
No.
I did not. Sorry, Paul. I should have put my response in there. I advocate for 5 p.m. Pacific.
Okay.
It seems to work for me talking to a Shanghai team at Microsoft fairly well.
Okay. We don't have Niall on, do we?
No, I just looked.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I think that sounds fine to me. So do we want to do like every third one? Is it 5? I think you said 5 p.m. Pacific.
Yeah.
Or maybe even every fourth one. That would be totally fine with me. I may not be able to make it always to those.
Okay, so I'll put in the Google, I'll put in this post, I'll put in my opinion. Mine is every third one, so we get a little bit more than once a month, but not too much, so that we have to run 2 meetings a lot.
Yeah, so I guess that does raise the question of, are we talking about are we just going to do one meeting that day, or are we going to do like one in the normal time and one for APAC friendly?
Let me get Morgan. Go ahead, Morgan, and then Paul, I'll put a hand up for my opinion there.
No, if it sounds like, Aaron, it sounds like you have people who actually want to do something. If you could get them to actually, I would like to, at least pretend to have the discussion in the email, so we can like say, hey, we're trying to get your attention so that you can actually contribute. I don't want to set a random time that, fine, we have the meeting, and then, half of us can't make it and nobody shows up who benefits from the meeting time. So, I mean, if we want to just start scheduling it, we can start scheduling it. I just wanted to avoid like wasting people's time, wasting time for a good meeting. So, and
cool. So I'll say my little piece here. Morgan, I don't have people that want to attend this meeting necessarily. I was just drawing on experience from talking to another team internally that is from Microsoft. They seem to be okay with that 5 time. And then Paul, To answer your question, I was thinking probably having the regular meeting times for us once a week, plus a second one once every 3 weeks to accommodate the APAC times. And that was to keep our current cadence, plus either having a summary for APAC people or to obviously solicit their feedback without requiring them to wake up at 5 or 4 a.m.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Sorry, I'm not doing speaker queue very well. I am chopping vegetables right now.
Okay. Any other comments, questions here? Going once. All right. I will take it as an action item to write down a summary in the Google group thread of what we all seem to be mostly on the same page. Responses in that thread are very welcome. And if we don't come to some agreement by next Monday, then we'll bring this up again on next Monday. Any objections to that? Going once? Okay. I'll write that as an AI for myself. AI Aaron to write proposal in Google Groups thread. Okay. Next up is Jay with some O.2 milestone review. You want to go ahead, Jay?
Yeah, sure. So we've got the 020 milestone coming up next. I did a review of the face-to-face action items we had from November, and there were a bunch of, that was a tired time frame with Thanksgiving, and then the Thanksgiving break just before the meeting, and then start of December and Christmas holiday coming up. A lot of stuff we had good notes on. Doug captured some great minutes, but we didn't get action items on things. So I ran through there and tried to make sure that everything was captured, and I ended up adding a bunch of things today. And I believe now that all action items for that were captured, and I've tagged them with the 020 milestone. We got about 37 items on here that are marked for 020. I can post the link for the milestone.
What should I go look at?
There you go.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay, good.
I put a hand up real quick, Jay. Thank you for doing that. I had an AI to write general themes for a GA release, and this will be very helpful. That's it from me.
Yeah.
Any other comments here before we do the review? Going once?
Sorry, my hand is up, but it also has a vegetable in it.
Okay. Go for it.
So I think it would be really cool if, when we talk about these O.2 themes, like if folks are paying, giving some thought to what they would personally like to work on. And I think it would be awesome if we could kind of fan out the actions of, capturing proposals that we can talk about and getting consensus on things to like individuals that have an interest in a particular thing. Like going through that experience and getting used to doing that is something that is a really valuable skill. So if you haven't done it before, like it's a wonderful time to start right now. Doing that kind of thing, and I think that would be awesome to help level up people that are interested in doing that kind of thing, and also make sure that we don't have to single thread on 3 or 4 people having to sort it all out. So I would just encourage everybody to be thinking about that as we talk about these things. Yep.
Okay.
Do we have a general? I'm trying to run the time frame that we put on 020. I I don't know that I recall talking about a specific time.
I think that we had sort of talked about maybe around 1:10.
Yeah, so no calendar date at this point.
No.
Okay. So there's 37 items on here. I don't know if we want to go through each and every single one of them. I can touch on some of these. Perhaps folks on the phone can chirp up if we want to do a high level on each one.
I put my hand up. So what I would suggest here is we put a time box on this and then do the rest asynchronously. So I'll propose a time box, which is 30 minutes. So we'd be done at 45 with this. And then we'll have 15 minutes to go over Morgan's item. And then we've got Carolyn's item as well. So that's my suggestion, and I can help facilitate.
Sounds great. Let's do that. So if you dive right in here, update developer doc around code health. Scott and Kibbles had volunteered to review contributing design and code standards and do some cleanup and maybe add some new documentation around general code health. The next item, I was thinking about we ought to make everyone, probably not everyone, but each maybe we get one person from each company to volunteer and put their names down under assignee. This item, get doc writer support for 020 documentation. We're going to see if we can get professional doc writers to, or at least get the companies to volunteer some time from doc writers and get some help with pulling the docs together. So I think I'd probably recommend everybody nominate someone from each company to be the point person to find out if, get an answer on if they can get some doc support. Next item down is huge. Create new documentation. We had, I guess, a brainstorming at the face-to-face, and we came up with a slew of documentation on here. I think we probably need to, either break off into a small working group and determine, prioritize what to do here, or break this out individual items, because there's a ton of items on here. And I don't know if we have anyone that wants to volunteer to lead this off. And actually, why don't we come back to it? We'll just plan on running through the 020 items. So that's certainly a big one. Next one is 1677, determine where to host service catalog documentation. Vile has that one, and we chatted briefly about that. I think he's still fine with being on the hook to determine where we're going to host stuff.
Hey, Jay, can I interrupt you for just administrative here?
Absolutely.
So I've heard us with kind of 2 action items so far. I tried to capture one in the notes, but Morgan, or someone else, would someone be willing to capture some of these action items just in the agenda for now?
I think the big one is, at least we got 2 that aren't assigned. Everyone getting doc writer support, and then this huge documentation item.
Okay.
Improve cube control. Get for the service catalog resources. I think that's well underway with the plugin work we've got going on. Next one is 1604.
Yeah, Marco is working on the kubectl get one. I guess he may not be able to get issues assigned to him, but he's working on that one.
Yep. Should we assign that? I guess assign that to him.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether he is able to be assigned to things right now, but maybe we take that as an action item for.
Yeah, I'll put a note in there. Okay. This next one, 1604, is API surface, for which service plans and brokers catalog have Kubernetes objects created for them. I think this was the white list and black list for what items actually get surfaced out of a service catalog, out of a broker, excuse me. And we don't have anyone assigned on that, so it's another open item. And again, I say if someone wants to contribute some knowledge as we go through these, just jump right in. 1409, improve test constructs for events. I know Scott has done some work along here. It may be done, but I'll leave that for Scott to be sitting out here. He's got 3 items that have already been merged. 1434, there should be an etcd storage path test. Matt has a pull request that's outstanding that I think closes this off, but last I saw it was in review still. I don't know if that got hung up. It's probably a good reminder that maybe we take a look through the outstanding pull requests, because it looked to me like it was done and probably just waiting on a final review. 1324, add timeouts to all tests. I don't think any work has been done on this from what I see here. Uh, 1309, make purge generated, make target friendly to expansions. There's a couple items that are code cleanup around building make. This is certainly one of them. Actually, this might, right. There's a work item, a pull request outstanding on this one. Again, I think it's standing in one of those states where it's looking for some final review.
Okay, if we can get that linked in there, we can look at it.
Yeah, it's 13. The pull request is 1305, I believe.
One looks like it's in already.
It's done. Oh, it is merged.
This
Okay.
is not. Well, I mean, 1309 says something done in 1305 is broken by this behavior.
You're right.
I don't really understand this behavior to comment on it. So.
Yeah, you're right. We'll leave that open pending another review. 1303, make verify should validate the versioned APIs contain JSON flags for fields.
Yeah, this one definitely has a PR.
Yep.
I've seen this one. I've looked at it.
Yep.
I don't remember what.
Well,
I think this one just merged. I think this just merge this one.
Yeah, it's listed as open still. Okay.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying. Looking at the PR, it looks like it's ready to go. I don't see any. Just hit the button on it. Somebody.
Super.
I'm not logged in here, so anybody wants to hit the button on
I'll do it real quick.
1480, go for it.
Thanks, Morgan. 1362, add a status field to a cluster service class for current plans. I don't have a clue about what this is. Show the currently available plans for a service class in order to have good UX.
So I added that one. I think that was like something I added while I was like brainstorming. I'm not sure that we need to do that one anymore because we have the CLI that can give us a good experience for like seeing all the details of a service tied together like that. So that one might not be like a huge deal or something that we want to do right now.
Makes sense to me.
Sounds good.
We also need to keep, during our sort of API views and whatever that, the API doesn't need to be the be all end all of interaction. It just needs to be possible to get the information, and we can wrap a client around it. So anyway, let's continue. Sorry.
Good point. 1361, serve open API and provide useful columns in Cube Control. Marco's definitely working on this one, and I guess Mark there is in progress. 1313, add more meaningful examples in Contrib API server. Scott indicated he was interested in this back in October, but time passes and we'll have to check in with Scott again, see if I don't think he's done anything with it, would be my guess. The next one is 1286. Users should be able to choose service and plan for instances using external IDs. And actually, Carolyn indicated that she'd like to work on this.
Yeah, if someone hasn't already grabbed that, I can start working on that soon.
Great. Next one is 1200. Add a namespace version of service broker, service class, service plan. I've started working on a proposal for this and hope to have something for review or discussion next week. Next one is 1311. Add ability to map broker response into specific keys of Kubernetes secret.
That's also one Marco's interested in working on.
Great. 1311. I'll update that with Marco's name. Next one is 1198. What should happen when you update a service instance credential for a deleted service instance? I know we've got a lot of work around cleaning up for deletion. This isn't indicated, no one's putting notes on here, so I guess we'll have to review it and see where we stand with this. Paul, you had notes on here. What happens when you try to update a service instance credential when the service instance is deleted? Obviously, the spec lacks updating for bindings, but update also encompasses labeling and annotating objects. Seems like you shouldn't be prevented from labeling or annotating when the instance has been deleted.
Yeah, I'm going to need to take a look at this one to get it back in my head.
Yeah, and I think part of the intention is today everybody just review and hopefully put dibs on what you think you might like to work on. So 1197 is the next one. Add support for resource quota over service instances and service instance credentials. Paul, this is another one you had quota handling.
I understand from talking to Derek Carr, who's like the owner of Quota, at least historically in Kubernetes, that this one should actually be very easy, with the caveat that what you have to do is basically lifting in an emission controller from Kubernetes. So I'm not sure if there's a better way to do that, but the generic Quota is already there in Kubernetes for us to use. We just need to enforce it.
Thanks, Paul.
Does anybody know who that guy is? Ice Reed? Oh no, I guess he's just saying he wants it. Never mind.
Yeah. Next one is 994. Add a pod preset binding resource.
I'm not sure this is an O.2 thing anymore. Like, it feels to me much further out than O.2.
I mean, we got to get prod presets in first, so.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So is that general agreement? We'll move 994 out.
I don't think it belongs in O.2, personally.
Any objections to removing it from O.2? Going once? All right.
Great.
Yeah, take it out.
Yep. Thanks. Next one is 1003. Steps to configure the API aggregation should be encapsulated into a Helm plugin. I question if we need to do this anymore.
I think this one is defunct.
Okay.
Yeah, this
it's on
is
my list too.
Great. Out of there. 1001, umbrella issue for reconciliation semantics. Haven't done much with this. We had some good conversation earlier in the year on it, but I don't know where this stands.
Well, it looks like a good document that we should. I don't know if we need to close it or leave it open or whatever, but I agree with the general sentiment. This goes back to my let's write down the state machines we have and then reconcile them with what we want. So
I'll link it back to the doc stuff just so it's captured there and maybe it can be pulled in.
Yeah.
999. What happens on service class name conflicts?
I thought we tweaked the names coming in or something.
Yeah, I raised my hand here. I believe we added a prefix with cluster ID, or at least we had a plan to add a prefix with not cluster ID, with a broker ID, some kind. Does anyone remember for sure?
I think this one was like became less important once we decided that we were going to use like the external, like the open service broker ID as the Kubernetes name.
Yes.
I think this one dates from before we were doing that.
That's true.
Yeah, that's true. I think this can be closed then.
Yeah.
But what if we have a conflict?
But it's just that's just for human readable name, right? I mean, we're not keying off that anymore.
Well, when you specify
not
the
right
instance,
now.
Yeah, can we, Michael, go ahead. Can you speak a little louder?
Yeah. So when you specify the instance, though, you can specify with the external name. So if we have two instances or two classes with the same external name, still it would be a problem, wouldn't it?
Right.
Yeah, good point.
So all it really solved was the Kubernetes like internal representation.
Let's make a note on 999 and make sure that's captured, and let's leave it there. Moving forward, 952. CI API registration aggregation.
I think that I think we need to get our ECE, EE2E working again, don't we?
So I think this actually dates from when we did not have aggregation turned on in CI.
Yeah.
So I think this one might be defunct.
Yeah.
Giggles, does that ring a bell with you?
Reading it, that's what it sounds like.
Yep.
Okay, close it.
Great. Moving along, 948. Service catalog appears to not be passing valid broker auth credentials.
This is defunct.
So you're good with just closing this?
Yep.
All right.
That's 948.
That's right.
All right.
Next one is 942. Deprovisioned service instance is never deleted. Jessica had created this from the device.
I'm not sure if this is still an issue.
Right. Let's. There's an item that's linked. Well, anyway, we'll come back through it and verify if it's.
Last comment's the only thing that seems like it could be still relevant.
Yeah, you're right. All right, we'll verify if it's still there. Next one is 926. Determine official namespace where catalog will run. Currently, we're suggesting catalog as a namespace where the catalog component runs. Paul says, I think we should lock down to an official namespace with less ambiguous, such as cube-service-catalog.
Yes, I still think that would be good. If we can come to a quick agreement, I'm all for it. If people disagree, then I think there's no reason that we have to have unanimous consensus on this.
So put my hand up. Can we have that discussion on this issue? And then again, if we can't come back to something, we'll come back next week and come to a final decision. Any disagreements there? Okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so put your suggestions in there.
Yep, that's 926. Next one is 925. Check for errors on updating conditions in the controller. It's a continuation of 923 is the comment. Actually, it looks like it was open and closed.
Yeah, I believe this is done.
Great. Should we leave it to verify? Or do you feel positive on that one?
I'm 95% sure this is done. What issue? 925. I'll close 925.
Great. Thank you. Next one is 908. Cube control doesn't delete instance resources when deprovision calls fail. We've had a lot of work in here around that, haven't we? Yeah, there's 891 was done. Is that's merged?
Yeah, I think 891 solved half the problem. I don't think we've addressed the force on. Yeah, I don't think we've addressed the force flag, but I'm not sure if we have to anymore, given that we have a plugin.
Do we want to retitle this, or do you want a new follow-up issue, or?
I think retitle, just talk about the force flag, and I'll do the retitling in shortly.
Super, thank you. It's 908.
Thanks.
Next one is item 800, change what we send for org, space, and context.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still working on the ID thing, so.
Yep, that's right. Down to 4 more. Number 750, secret generated from a binding should have a reference to the binding. When a binding object is created and then a secret is generated for that binding, that secret should have a reference back to the binding. I thought we had this. We don't?
So at one point we did, and we set controller ref on the secret, I think.
Yeah.
And that proved not to work right in Kubernetes 1.8 or 1.7. Like there was a GC bug that made that not work right at all. So we should probably look at that and see if it works correctly now.
So let's leave it there. Thanks, Paul. Next one is number 797. How do people update pre-pod set label selectors?
Not part of 0.2, I don't think.
Yep. Move this out of scope.
Yeah.
Doug, is that supposed to say pod preset, or?
Probably, yeah.
Okay, just checking, because
I
don't know what a pre-pod set is.
Yeah. Consider it a typo.
Yeah, all right.
So
All right, I changed the title. Next one is 634. Document how people can get various levels of access to our repository. This looks like developer doc.
I'll raise my hand there. This is something that the steering committee is now starting to think about. Doug, you requested elaborate a little bit more. I can do that, and we can leave this open, but let's take it out of 0.2 because the future is uncertain.
Sounds good to me.
Is that fair, Doug? Anyone else objections?
Yeah, I guess. This sounds like it's a documentation issue, not really a coding issue, so sure.
That's right, yeah. 634.
And the last one, 499. Namespace resources should be finalized with when the Kubernetes namespace is finalized.
That's implemented. Bam.
Nice.
Wow, with the bang. Yeah.
That's it.
How does that work? What does that mean? There's something that we had to do to implement this, or it came from the upstream stuff?
It actually, I'm sorry, I got the streams crossed. It does work. We did not have to do anything to make it work.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I like that. That's always good.
It's my favorite kind of thing.
Defaults. Same defaults.
And that's it. I close that. So that enumerates the 020 items.
Super
Cool.
duper.
Any other comments, questions here before we move on? Sounds like we've got AIs in the doc already. We've got some folks who have volunteered. Seems like we're good here. Going once for any other comments? All right. Thanks, Jay, for running through that. That's really helpful.
Yep, thank you.
All right, we can move on. Morgan, you've got a comment here, or an item here called old stuff.
Yeah, it's actually a lot like what Jay was doing. So I think we can do, I only have a list of a couple of things to talk about. So I'll just type some numbers in, and if we can just sort of continue in the same fashion as we were, I think that's the most effective thing. It shouldn't take more than a couple minutes, and then Carolyn can go. First is 778. Oh, did you? No. This was a pushing a build image thing. Do we push that now, or is it still a thing we need to talk about?
This one can be closed because we do push it to Quay now.
Okay. 778 close. Oops. Okay, next is 3. Oh, I'll come back and fix that. 389. 389. Is this something that we still need to document? This is the SSL strategy for, I assume, everything, also besides the API server, but everything else. Is this taken care of by the Helm chart and GenCA, or is this something that we need to either document or point to the upstream documentation? I don't need an answer right now, but might want to review this one as well.
Sorry, which one is this? I missed it.
SSL TLS document for what does the API server do?
I'm going to put my hand up here. So it looks like the OP was Kent. I think, I don't know if you're on a call, Kent. Yeah. So can we do an AI for you, Kent, to write down any thoughts here and close if necessary?
Because my thought is the aggregator sort of blows up this if it's not if it's running in cluster. If it's not running in cluster, obviously there needs to be some documentation on it, but it's not particularly beyond what exists already, I don't believe.
Yeah, I can take the AI for this, Aaron.
Yeah, thank you. I'll write that as a note, Morgan.
Okay, super. And then this is my favorite one for Paul. It consists entirely of an emoji. So
I say we merge it.
I think I was in a hurry.
so I was just, if you could look at it and maybe remember what you were trying to say. Okay, good.
Yeah, it's what it says. So the API port buzzers import PKG controller, and the comment is a concise description of how I feel about that.
So you don't want that to happen. Okay, got it. Now I understand how to speak Paul in this one instance.
It's a test level import cycle.
Okay, got it. Understood.
So I'll raise my hand. Can we get some more comment there for someone who wants to implement it?
Yeah, we'll put something in.
Thanks.
If you drop the link in the chat, I'll comment that thing up right now. Sorry.
So what are you making, Paul, besides vegetables?
I was making slow cooker pork stew, and now I'm eating a protein bar.
Nice. Excellent. Okay, that does it for me. I'll look through the old issues again later and try to keep paring them down.
Cool. All right. Any final comments, questions here before we move on? All right. Thanks, Morgan. That was as well. That was super helpful. All right. So let's move on to you, Carolyn, talking about glide versus depth for dependency management.
Yeah, it's less glide versus depth and more, as I was going through it, we were pinning specifically to an individual revision. And there's a couple different ways to do that with, here, let me share actually, because, oh, I can't share. Hey, can someone not share so I can share? Yeah, there we go, thank you. So if we look at the gopackage.toml that comes out of this, I tried to leave some comments into it. I mean, most of this is it is very straightforward and doesn't really need to be chatted about. But so for example, glog, okay. We kind of ran into weirdness with how dep works. And what I was trying to figure out was the bug with glog something that would impact someone who is using service catalog as a library? Because basically a lot of these come down to we can make a reproducible build using our go package and .toml that you see here and a lock. But if someone's using us as a library, dep treats some of these things differently, and people would end up with a different revision. So for example, EasyJSON, we had a specific revision pinned. Go open API swag, we had a specific revision pinned. Those are in the lock. If you do a build, you'll get those revisions. But if someone used dep, for example, and referenced service catalog, it's not guaranteed they would get these exact revisions. So there's workarounds, but I wasn't sure if we needed those workarounds or if the looser constraint would work.
All right. Paul's got a hand up. Go ahead, Paul.
I was actually just going to ask if you'd care to make a bet, Carolyn, on how many million lines of code we'd lose when we did a dep prune.
It's 5,400 files.
Nice. I'll take that.
Yeah.
I am not sure that I follow this. The last thread of discussion though on if you vendor us, do you get that exact version?
So when you run dep ensure inside of the root of our service catalog repository, dep looks at gopackage.toml and gopackage.lock, and it basically regenerates exactly what's in our vendor. We check in vendor anyway, so it doesn't really matter. We're going to get the versions we want. That's not the part that I'm trying to bring up. I'm trying to ask that if someone else uses service catalog as a library, maybe there's something really cool that we did, they want to be able to use it, interact with generated client, things like that. How important is it that they exactly get this revision of swag or exactly this revision of EasyJSON? Or if, as long as they use master or reasonable sum for a range, will it still work?
I see what you mean. So does that only apply to the ones that you have commented, or is that for anything else?
Just for the ones that I've commented.
Oh, okay.
They're transitive constraints, or they're dependencies of service catalogs dependencies. We don't directly import Open API Swag or EasyJSON anywhere, and dep gives us less control over the exact revision in that case, unless we do something to kind of say we really need to pin those revisions.
Got it. But if you vendor this repo with dep,
Yep.
Our repo with dep, you're going to get the version of kates.io/Django that we're pinned to, right?
You'll get everything that's in the toml, but not what's in the lock. So if you look at the lock, there's explicit revisions and things like that. But when you use someone as a library, DEP ignores the lock and just goes by what's in the TOML file. So they'll get etcd 3.2.13. They'll definitely get Kubernetes 191, things like that. They'll get master of glog. But for this one, say swag, they make it the latest version off of master instead of this explicit one. And it wasn't clear from the glide comments if it was critical. Are we avoiding a bug? Are we just trying to generally stay in sync? Does it matter or not? It makes it easier for people to consume you as a library if you don't hard pin revisions. That's all. Because if they rely on somebody else who also relies on EasyJSON, and we both have conflicting revisions, it makes people's lives difficult. So we try to limit that in general if you anticipate being used as a library.
Interesting. And this is the TOML that we're looking at?
Some more, can we get
Yeah, this is the Go
Morgan's
package
hand up?
TOML file.
Can I let Morgan go? He's got a hand up.
The historical aspect of this, I'd have to go look through the history of the glide file, but my guess here is that anything we specifically pinned is we were matching what it was in our dependencies at the time to get everything to build.
Mm-hmm.
The things that people might want to use would be the generated client, would be my guess. That's about it. And whatever we need to do to get that build depends on all the API machinery stuff. Now, we've switched from depending on directly upstream Kubernetes, the giant one, to these individual libraries.
Mm-hmm.
If the individual libraries have a constraint, I would be inclined to stick with that constraint because, but if I don't see how the client would have any dependencies on stuff like API server or the API machinery type stuff beyond client Go and beyond, I think it's Kate's API or something like that. And so I don't see that these two dependencies specifically need to be tied to anything for the client to work. So the only thing I could suggest is I guess we need to try and sort of check out the client and build the client specifically into like a sample program or something and see if that compiles.
Okay.
Now, whether it works correctly, obviously I can't, compiling is one thing, working is another thing. So if we want to try to say our client is ready to be used as a library, then we got to do some more testing and more sample clients. But we use it for our controller stuff because that's what it's for. It's for building a controller.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we can probably get rid of these constraints until we say, okay, the expectation is somebody can use the client. Did that make any sense?
Yeah, it does. I will add something that will be able to test our build off of a sample that would be a representative of what someone who is consuming our library would look like. And then maybe we can just do a test build and go, okay, does that work? And then just check that during our build so that we know if we've broken someone. I mean, bugs are bugs, but it should be able to compile if you use us using DEP.
That sounds sane to me.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. So I have a quick piece there to add a little bit of proof to what you said, Morgan. I recall putting the swag import in because the build was failing when we were on the Kube 1.7 code base before we were checking in our vendor directory, and obviously after we had checked in while we were still using Glide, obviously, and while we had our vendor directory checked in, but we were doing the upgrade to 1.7. So I highly suspect this is not an issue anymore, as Morgan said, just adding on to that point.
Yay.
That's it from me. Cool. Any other comments, questions, anything else in here that we need to talk through about DEP? Going once? All right. All right. Any other business anyone wants to talk about today? Discussions, comments, questions? Going once? All right. I hereby grant you 6 more minutes today. So use them wisely and enjoy the rest of your day. Take care, everybody.
Yay!
Thanks, everybody.
Peace out.